Good evening, this is Future Under Fire. I am a leaner heart, and tonight we are in the middle of a furious trade argument between two countries that used to describe each other as the safest of partners. The United States has moved ahead with 50% tariffs on a large basket of Canadian goods after negotiations collapsed. Washington frames the move as a defense of American industry under Section 338. Ottawa calls it economic coercion and has promised to retaliate dollar for dollar. With me, Maya Reynolds, a United States economist who argues tariffs can rebuild strategic industries, and Dr. Michael Grant, a Canadian economist who says this is a costly political weapon. Let us begin.
The polite version of this debate has failed for decades. America opened its market, watched supply chains hollow out, and then discovered during crises that cheap imports are not the same as resilience. A tariff is blunt, yes, but sometimes a blunt tool is what gets attention. If Canada benefits from the American consumer, then Canada must accept fair terms on autos, dairy, alcohol, and strategic manufacturing. If negotiations collapse, pressure is not irrational, it is leverage.
That sounds strong until you follow the bill. Tariffs are taxes paid through supply chains. Importers pay, businesses pass costs forward, and families see higher prices. Canada is not a hostile supplier. It is an ally tied to the United States through energy, autos, agriculture, metals, forestry, and millions of jobs on both sides of the border. Using a 50% tariff against a neighbor is not discipline. It is self-harm with a flag on it.
Quick fact check for viewers. The United States Trade Representative described the action as a 50% tariff on nearly $20 billion in imports from Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister's August statement described roughly $28 billion of Canadian goods and said Canada would match the tariffs dollar for dollar. Different currency treatment and affected categories may explain the gap, but the political meaning is clear. Both governments are preparing for escalation.
The Canadian side keeps saying ally as if that settles the economics. Allies still negotiate. Allies still protect their industries. The United States has learned that dependence can be dangerous, whether the issue is semiconductors, medicines, steel, cars, or critical inputs. Tariffs tell companies that if they want stable access to the American market, they should build and hire inside that market. It is not just punishment, it is a price signal.
A price signal can also tell firms to delay investment because no one knows the rules next month. The auto sector is deeply integrated. Parts cross the border more than once before a vehicle is finished. Put a 50% shock into that system, and you do not magically create a new plant overnight. You create paperwork, uncertainty, retaliation, and higher input costs for the very American factories you claim to defend.
Let us sharpen the point. If tariffs raise costs, who actually pays? Is it Canadian exporters, American importers, the consumer at the checkout, or the worker whose employer suddenly faces retaliation? Maya, give us the strongest version of your answer, not the campaign version.
There can be short-term pain. I will not deny that. But cheapness has been treated as the only economic virtue, and that is why so many communities lost bargaining power. If the tariff forces firms to localize production, diversify suppliers, and bring back technical capacity, the long-term gain can outweigh the short-term price increase. The point is not to make every product expensive forever. The point is to create leverage for a better deal.
But retaliation is not a footnote. Canada has said it will match dollar for dollar. That means American exporters can be hit in steel, dairy, appliances, electronics, agricultural equipment, and other politically sensitive sectors. The communities you claim to protect may face new costs and lost sales. Tariffs invite counter-tariffs, and then both sides start pretending the other side will blink first while businesses bleed cash.
This is no longer just a price debate, it is a sovereignty debate. Canada says it must not let any nation determine its future. The United States says it has the right to counter discrimination against its commerce, We are now talking about trust, not only tariffs. What happens to North American competitiveness if trust keeps breaking down?
Trust has to mean reciprocity. If one country restricts market access or shields favored sectors, the other country has a right to respond. America has been told for years to accept asymmetry because it is big enough to absorb it. That era is ending. A harsher negotiating position may be uncomfortable, but discomfort can push both sides toward a cleaner agreement.
A large economy has power, but power is not the same as wisdom. If every partner believes the United States can rewrite terms by threatening extreme tariffs, then partners diversify away from the United States. Canada is already talking about new markets and stronger domestic capacity. You may win a concession today and lose reliability tomorrow. That is how alliances become transactions, and transactions become resentment.
There is also a macroeconomic question. Tariffs can feed inflation by raising import prices and input costs. Retaliation can hit exporters and reduce demand. If businesses hesitate to invest, growth slows. If prices rise, central banks face a harder job. Is this the kind of industrial policy that builds capacity or the kind that creates stagflation pressure?
Tariffs only work if they are paired with investment. I agree with that. Revenue should support worker training, factory upgrades, and strategic infrastructure. Exemptions should protect essential inputs where sudden shocks would damage production. The goal must be a negotiated reset, not permanent economic trench warfare. But without pressure, the reset never happens. That is the pro-tariff position in one sentence.
The better answer is targeted enforcement, not a broad hammer against an ally. Use dispute settlement. Use rules of origin. Use anti-dumping cases when evidence supports them. Build resilience with grants, procurement, tax credits, and cross-border standards. If Washington wants North America to compete with China and Europe, it should deepen cooperation with Canada, not teach Canada to protect itself from Washington.
For viewers trying to make sense of this at home, watch 3 signals. First, prices on goods that depend on cross-border inputs: cars, appliances, food products, building materials, and energy-linked goods. Second, job announcements because firms may pause hiring while they wait for policy clarity. Third, political language. If leaders start describing compromise as weakness, the economic damage can last longer than the tariff order itself.
Companies should not simply complain. They should map exposure by supplier, country, contract, and customer. If a tariff can wipe out margin, management has to renegotiate terms, diversify inputs, and consider where final assembly happens. This is the new reality of trade policy. The smartest firms will not assume friction-free globalization is coming back. They will build optionality before the next shock hits.
And citizens should be careful with slogans. Protection can sound patriotic. Retaliation can feel satisfying. But the practical question is always the same. Does this policy raise real wages, improve productivity, and make the economy more resilient? Or does it move money from consumers to politically connected sectors while both governments claim victory? Anger is not an economic strategy. Evidence is.
Final verdicts. Maya says tariffs can be ugly but necessary leverage if they force investment, reciprocity, and a new industrial base. Michael says tariffs against Canada raise prices, trigger retaliation, weaken trust, and risk damaging the same workers they promised to defend. My view as moderator is simpler. The next few weeks matter. If this becomes a bridge back to negotiations, it may be a painful bargaining tactic. If it becomes a habit, North America will be poorer, angrier, and less prepared for the real competition outside its borders. That is tonight's Future Under Fire. Should tariffs be used to rebuild national industry, or are they a tax on ordinary people wrapped in patriotic language? Tell us which argument was stronger in the comments. and tell us what topic you want covered in the next episode: artificial intelligence and jobs, housing affordability, electric vehicles, defense spending, or the future of global trade. I am a leaner heart. Thank you for watching.